Raptors had their media day today, and we had some gems coming from all the press conferences we got to see, including Pascal Siakam making headlines for stating his new goal of being a top 5 player in the NBA. So we'll discuss that, as well as Nick Nurse coming out and saying that Fred VanVleet will be playing reduced minutes for this upcoming year in hopes of keeping him healthy for the playoffs. So we have that and a whole bunch more with Scottie Barnes, OG Anunoby, and Jalen Harris finally making an NBA team in this video. So without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here with the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news. And folks, if you're not subscribed to the Raptors Digest, it would help us out big time as we inch closer to the NBA season, inch closer to our goal of 26,000 subscribers. If you guys hit that sub button, and keeps you up to date on everything Toronto Raptors news. But we gotta dive into this Toronto Raptors news because we got a whole bunch to talk about, including Pascal Siakam's goal of being a top 5 player in the NBA. Now, Pascal had a lot of great quotes from this media day today, but he essentially talked about how he's been an all-star. He's been an all-NBA player. He's been an NBA champion. And what's the next logical step in a player's journey that seems to every offseason where he actually gets to practice, every offseason where he can access a gym and it's not locked down due to COVID, or he doesn't have shoulder surgery, which hampers his ability to train in the offseason. When he has those opportunities, he usually takes massive leaps, massive steps in his game. And this season, he was able to do that training with Rico Hines and all of these, and the Raptors teams down there in those runs. And what's the next logical step for a guy that's that accomplished with a whole offseason of playing? Well, turns out that's being a top 5 player in the NBA. I want to be the best. Pascal said he wants to be a top 5 guy, and this is something that has a few people around the NBA a little bit shook, a little bit confused. Pascal Siakam, top 5? In the upper echelon of tier names, guys, being compared alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic. Who else would be a top 5 guy? Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, Kawhi Leonard? Can Pascal Siakam insert his name in with those types of guys? And while it may sound crazy, while I don't think necessarily he's going to be able to do that just in one season, obviously you need season after season, year after year of producing at the highest possible level. Even if Pascal Siakam is capable of doing that, taking that leap this current season, I think you need sustained level of excellence at that tier, that speed to be considered a top 5 guy. It's not something that's impossible. As I've said, Pascal Siakam, every offseason that he has an opportunity to improve his game, he does, and does at really an exponential rate. Right back in 2019, that 2020 season prior to the bubble occurring, right, we were talking about Pascal Siakam every year has added huge additions to his game. Right, coming into the NBA, he was a guy that was just he's compared to Bismack Biyombo, just being a hustle guy down in the paint, can be energy, can run the floor and hype up a team. Then the next year, he's an integral part of that bench mob on that 2019 squad, and be coming in with CJ Miles, Jakob Poeltl, Yak skills, Fred VanVleet off the bench, and would be a quality piece of getting buckets and finishing some mid-range jump shots. And then 2019. Right? Or 2019, 2020, or 2018, 2019. I'm mixing up my years. But the year Kawhi came in, right, we weren't sure if Pascal would be able to jump from bench player to starter on a team that had championship aspirations. And he did. He did that. While CJ Miles may have started the first game of that season, Pascal Siakam ended up coming in and becoming really the second scoring option. Him and Kyle Lowry were 2A, 2B to Kawhi Leonard's 1 on that team, but he ended up being a key piece to that championship winning squad. And then prior to the bubble, that following year after Kawhi left, Pascal Siakam ended up making All-NBA. He was an All-Star the previous year, but making All-NBA, and did so at an elite level. And prior to the bubble, he was looking like a true number 1 option. And even though he struggled following that off season where he didn't get to train, didn't get to practice, in that bubble year down in Tampa, he dealt with injuries, dealt with health and safety protocols that prolonged just the sluggishness, the fatigue that came from that COVID-riddled season. Right, last year bounced back to that All-NBA level, and now if he can add a few more things, expand that jump shot, become more consistent beyond the 3-point line, be more capable at getting easy buckets. Now that would entail having more control of your body. He's great at the spin moves, but going in, embellishing contact and finishing in the lane, and having a couple of just shots, whether it be a floater, a consistent midi, which we saw him improve on this season, but be more capable of getting easy buckets, creating his own shots in the half court. If you can improve those two aspects, which there certainly is room for improvement. This is what he also said in the quote, right? He has so many areas to grow. Even in those two areas, if he can become excellent, right? Achieve excellence at that level, I don't think it's super crazy to think that Pascal can't become one of those upper tier guys in the league. Now, that's a huge ask, but it's a huge goal that he's setting out to achieve. If he's able to accomplish those things, and probably as well as improving his passing ability, if he become an elite passer like, a Jokic, even Giannis has improved his passing ability, a LeBron, who's probably one of the greatest passers of all time. If he can improve in those areas as well, right? There's a bunch of avenues where Pascal could achieve this because he has the size, he has the frame, he has the, he's proven he's already an all-NBA caliber player. So if he can take that extra step, there's no reason why Pascal can't do it. But it's going to take a lot of work, and I'm excited to see him take on this process. And if he can do it for this Raptors squad, who has a perfect young core around him, another emerging superstar in Scottie Barnes, an all-star in Fred VanVleet, Precious Achiuwa, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, all these guys, that's a championship level team if Pascal can become a top 5 player in the NBA. You're not changing my mind on that. But let me know if you guys think it's possible in the comment section below. The next thing we're discussing is the Raptors' other all-star, Fred VanVleet, potentially playing less minutes this current upcoming year. Now, Fred VanVleet was had one of the highest usages in the NBA, played some of the most minutes in the NBA this most recent season because we didn't really have a backup point guard last year that Nick Nurse trusted and relied upon to, take a load off of Fred VanVleet, especially during those regular season games, and we needed those wins. We needed everything out of this Raptors team to get where we were last year, and Fred VanVleet, he just burnt out. Right, he started off the season crazy hot, became an all-star, ended up, having a couple moments last year where he looked like one of those top guys for the Raptors team. And what was it, that quarter where he had 20 straight points to bring us a W, right? There was a lot of moments where Fred VanVleet just completely took over games and was that guy for the Toronto Raptors, especially before Pascal Siakam fully came to form, coming off of injury. But he ended up burning out in the second half of the season. He was dealing with lower body injuries left, right, and center. His game slowed down a bit, his percentages dipped, and he just wasn't able to sustain the level of play he had at the start of the year. Now, that can directly be attributed to Fred VanVleet's usage rate, what Nick Nurse was asking for him to do, what we needed him to do this current year. But Nick Nurse is coming in with a different strategy for this season, and he's saying that Fred VanVleet will play fewer minutes this year. Quote, that's the quote. I wonder if they'll borrow from the Lowry plan from the late Casey tenure as the blueprint to get Fred VanVleet some rest. And Fred's a guy that's similar to Kyle Lowry that wants to play the 40, 45 plus minutes a night if he has the opportunity to, but we got to think big. This Raptors team is looking to make a deep playoff run this year, and I'm all about, not necessarily load management, but just not spinning out the tires, not running this guy to the ground, right? Dragging him through the mud this entire season, forcing him to do too much because it's just not sustainable. So having a small guard like Fred VanVleet, who is integral to this team, having his minutes replaced, then I'm cool with it, especially during the regular season. Even if it means a couple more losses, a healthy Fred is way more important in June, July, May, whenever the playoffs are this year, right? Than it is, in January or something like that. Nick Nurse also discussed how on the offensive end, it's one thing, but defensively, Fred VanVleet provides so much value. So guards coming in will need to step up in those areas as well. But one guy that is looking to take some more point guard minutes is Scottie Barnes, looking to play a bit more point guard this season. And Scottie Barnes, his Instagram bio, his Twitter, he's always talking about how he wants to play point guard as his main position. He always looks at himself as a point guard. It's why he chose his school in Florida to play uni basketball, to play college basketball, because he got to play point guard. It's a position he likes to play. And obviously, Scottie Barnes is one of the most elite passers on this Raptors team, and likely in the NBA as he polishes his handle up a little bit more, but just has a great feel for the game, a great just passing ability, throwing those no looks. He has size for the point guard position, and he plays like at least a point forward, right? There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And with Fred VanVleet potentially playing a reduced role, at least in terms of minutes, right? Obviously, he's going to be a starter. Fred VanVleet's are going to be our main ball handler. I think, especially if Malachi Flynn and Delano Banton can't step up to the plate as the backup guard for this team, we might see Scottie Barnes getting a lot more run at the point guard position. This was his I don't have his quote pulled up, or this is his quote saying, "I've always been a point guard, but I feel like I could do it all, no matter what it is. I can play any position, but I've always seen myself as a point guard." So, Scottie is just ready to do what's asked for him on this Raptors team. Fred's still going to be the main point guard, but if Delano and Malachi Flynn can't step their way in, we might see Scottie Barnes playing more of that role. But the next guy we're talking about is a guy that plays along the wing with Scottie Barnes, and it's OG Anunoby. And get his name right. He spells it prefers it spelled with a couple of dots. O.G. But that's the new name convention. So don't have the old OG Anunoby there for there. Throw the name in. Anyways, I digress on that point. But OG Anunoby spoke out on some of the rumors that were going around this offseason about him being unhappy with his role in Toronto, being frustrated as to not being a main guy, not being a main focal point in the offseason, in the offense, especially when Pascal was out the start of the year, when Scottie Barnes was still coming to his own. He was given an extended role, and even though the Raptors weren't winning a lot of games, OG Anunoby was getting buckets. So, felt like there was some legs as to why he might be frustrated, as he was falling down the pecking order in the Raptors offense, and with Scottie Barnes' emergence, obviously not because OG Anunoby is regressing as a player, but OG Anunoby essentially came out and said, "I was really surprised by that quote coming out." And he said he never talked to Nick Nurse directly about being frustrated with the role. He was just surprised. Obviously, OG's a soft-spoken, pretty cut and dry guy, right? Just a little bit shocked as to why those rumors ended up coming out. So the confusion, there's a lot of on us. We were saying OGs to all the reports, all the rumors. You look back to the videos, we weren't really buying that OG was actually frustrated. Just people trying to stir up dramas, trying to stir up a trade request, try and get one of our top guys. And it seems like from all the quotes, from everything that's come out, OG Anunoby's happy. There probably was some rumblings, just given what Nurse said. The Nurse and Masai Ujiri quotes from the offseason, there probably was something to OG Anunoby wanting a bigger role, but nothing to the extent that all the rumors and the reports were jumping on. So it's nice to see OG Anunoby happy with his tenure in the Raptors and wanting to stay and come into a nice, good season this year. But the next thing we're talking about is the Raptors changing their offensive philosophy. Now, the Raptors they're known for trying out some different things, trying out some different schemes, whether it be offensively, defensively. I think the defense gets a little bit more attention than the offense at times, but Nick Nurse is looked at as a wizard. Even Fred VanVleet said in his interview today, we have the best coach in the NBA, Nick Nurse, and that's a sentiment held by a lot of Raptors fans. And he's looking to shake things up a little bit coming into this year in terms of offensive philosophy. And he's saying that he's looking for the 2022-23 Raptors to attack the rim more often and get to the free throw line more. Compares it to running a bit in the NFL to open up the pass. We'll open up catch and shoot threes. That should smoothen out the shot spectrum. And I love this. I love this for our team, our current makeup. Obviously, we're seeing the development of jumpers of guys like Scottie Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Pascal Siakam, even OG Anunoby, but with the exception of maybe OG Anunoby, these guys aren't necessarily natural three-point shooters. They're guys that develop or developing into three-point shooters. But their real assets, their bread and butter is scoring around the rim, driving the basket. And if you can get those shots, if you can be more of a threat inside, more of a threat attacking the rim, then the three-point shots you do take, the three-point shots you do get, the open looks, as Nick Nurse described, they're going to be more open, they're going to be more efficient, and it's easier to score around the rim. It's easier to get more free throws. And having a guy like Scottie Barnes be shooting more free throws, because we've seen when he's in attack mode, he's completely unstoppable going to the rim. And I think Gary Trent Jr. is the guy that has that shooting touch, makes a lot of middies, but he can get to the rim a little bit more. He has a really underrated touch around the rim, finishing ability. So if he can get in there, get to the free throw line a bit more, that's going to be a huge positive for the Toronto Raptors. Now, the final thing we're discussing, the final thing we're talking about, might have a few Raptors fans frustrated, a few Raptors fans sad. People in the Jalen Harris hive are in a somber mood today, as he is no longer, there's no longer a chance he signs with the Raptors, at least this offseason, as Jalen Harris has signed with the New York Knicks. It was released today, and I didn't figure he was coming back to the Raptors, especially everything that went on this offseason. I thought a couple of guys down in Rico Hines had more chance of Jalen Harris returning. Didn't put up the greatest stats in his time in the CEBL. So I'm not shocked that the Raptors didn't bring him back, but I'm wishing him the best playing for the New York Knicks. He's joining probably the last chance to get to use this animation, joining Svi Mihaly down there in New York to fight for a roster spot on that Knicks team. So a couple scores, leaving the deep bench for the Raptors, or potential deep bench for the Raptors, and I'm wishing both of them the best. But I'm also wishing all Raptors fans and the Jalen Harris Hive the best as well, because a lot of people wanted him back on this Raptors team. But folks, let me know what you guys think of all this Toronto Raptors news. You're the best to make this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Also, Courtside Digest. If you made it to the end of this video, you want to check out some more stuff, more news, Courtside Digest, we've been dropping daily videos on that channel covering everything NBA. So it'd mean the world if you guys could check that out. If you made it this far, you may as well go similar style, similar vibes to this channel, but covering everything all NBA. But that's enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.